Today, we're honored to welcome a leader whose career trajectory is both inspiring and transformative. From a 17-year-old enlisted in the U.S. Navy to now serving as Lenovo's Senior Vice President and Chief Security and AI Officer, Doug Fisher has navigated a path filled with innovation, leadership, and a passion for safeguarding the future of technology. Doug isn't just steering Lenovo to the future, he's at the helm of how AI security are being integrated and governed. Doug, we're excited to have you on the show. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's really great to be back and talking with you again.
Awesome. From time to time, we'll let our audience know who's actually asking our esteemed guest the question because we've been told not only do we look alike, we actually sound alike. Now, Doug, first of all, thank you for your service. We support two things on our show more than anything else. Anybody has any twins in their family, but also two, anyone that's a military veteran. Having myself serve back in 91 and really excited about people that also serve. And you were actually in a very interesting role. And we're going to get talk about your role in the Navy, talk about your role in Lenovo, or even talk about your educational career and how it all comes together. There was a book that I read called Turn That Ship Around. This really inspired me. It was a game changer in my leadership style from leading global channel sales all over the world that I could actually trust and build up my people to do what they need to do to help overall govern our ship, which is moving in the right direction. And we're really excited about learning more about your military journey and how that actually applied to your role in Lenovo. So please stay tuned, everybody. Dave and I are really happy to have Doug on today because we're going to get leadership principles from Lenovo, leadership principles from the Navy, and then how all that comes together in his strategic role. Doug, this is David. I want to ask you, could you touch on briefly your time in the Navy and how that may have shaped your outlook on leadership? And what do you draw from that? What strengths, what experiences do you draw on as you look at your role here at Lenovo?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mentioned at the beginning, it was when I was 17 years old. I was young, going nowhere, very immature, confused, and insecure, I would say, looking back. The Navy, as you know, you served, it breaks you down and rebuilds you as a different person. And it gave me tremendous confidence and leadership skills that I believe are instrumental where I'm at today. And so my experience in the military was fantastic. And I learned how to work with a diverse set of people in diverse situations under a lot of stress and learn how to lead through that, which I don't think is much different. It's very transferable into the civilian world that I operate in today.
That's fantastic, Doug. And I love that. And as my twin mentioned, we have a deep appreciation for all who served our military to understand the discipline, to understand the ability to work as a unit, to be able to bring that insight into your role in Lenovo is amazing. I want to ask you a little bit about your role, Doug. You hold a unique position with Lenovo where you oversee both security and AI governance, two critical and often very distinct areas. This is a dual responsibility that many in our industry would not understand how you could do both at the same time. So, can you touch on your role? How do you manage and balance the need between the areas of protection on one side and the drive for innovation on the other?
That's a great question. Several years ago, I was asked to be Lenovo's first chief security officer. And my role was really to build a better orchestration and governance around what we were doing in security. The misnomer is security is just one thing, and it's actually a collection of a lot of different areas of security to ensure that you do the most important thing, and that's protect customers' data and privacy. You secure that. And so my job was to orchestrate that. I built what's called the Pantheon, which is probably behind me in my video here. And it shows that it's the foundation, which is culture and policy, but it's built on product, supply chain, physical elements associated. Then, of course, cybersecurity and the CISO works for me, all working in unison, ensuring that we have the right priorities and the right motion in place to secure our customers' data and keep their privacy intact. Now, when you look at AI, it really is a very similar situation where we have to ensure that all elements of our company are working together to deliver a responsible AI product or solution. And so many of the similar things I'm doing in security apply to what I'm going to be doing in AI, responsible AI.
This is Danny, and I really appreciate you talking about bringing all the groups together. And for people that may not understand, one aspect is complex enough as it is when you're talking about AI. And another aspect is very complex as well when you're talking about cybersecurity. And the fact you brought up this methodology that they call the Pantheon, which I think is very responsible AI. It's an initiative, it's a philosophical approach that you have for security management. And I think for an end user, whether it be commercial or business side of the house, can feel secure that you and your team have actually thought about the present as well as the future. And I think that's fantastic. Now, I'm asking this question from an angle of your background, because your background of technology, your background of engineering, your background working in a nuclear sub, you have all this stuff that's going on. I guess you can say that you've always been kind of a geek, that you've always loved technology. You always loved that aspect of it. And I think that's fantastic. This question comes from the fact that you've managing multiple type of technologies, multiple departments all at once. How do you feel that you've been able to manage those various groups together as you're moving forward? Because you guys are always thinking a couple of years ahead. How have you been able to manage all those different disparate teams to act as one on behalf of your consumer and on behalf of your commercial clients?
I think it does go back to my military training where you learn how to take and structure things so that in a chaotic environment, everybody has their role and elements they need to deliver as a team. And so when I looked at each one of these problems, when you first go in, it looks very complex, it looks very chaotic, but when you dig through it, there's a lot of great work being done, but they're done fundamentally in pillars or silos. And so I have learned, or my techniques have strengthened in the ability to take a little bit of chaos and put structure around it. I'm a big believer people operate much better when they see a structure in place and clarity on where their particular role helps drive an initiative. And so much as I did with security around the Pantheon, I've done and working on a similar approach with responsible AI using a pyramid. That the foundation is our culture and policies. Building on top of that is security, trust, responsibility, ethics, all working together to drive a responsible AI product or solution. So I'm putting a structure in place, very similar, where everybody knows what their role is as an individual, as well as how it applies to the overall strategic effort we're putting in place with our products and services.
This is David Duggan, and I'm going to ask if it's possible for you perhaps go a little deeper in this aspect of communication. And before you do that, I love what you said. It's a little bit of chaos, and you put some structure behind it. And there's something to be said about what pressure can do to drive the best performance, to bring the best of their people, especially when they know that their role is significant to the overall growth of the organization. Hey, I might have my widget, but that's going to be the very best widget and the most vital part to the program. And they believe that. And so this is what leadership is all about. And I want to ask you, when you talk about communication and that level, talk about the culture that you've been building that ensures a clarity of communication, that the channels are there, that expectations are known, so that there isn't a mishap, and so that there aren't two departments working on two different aspects of the same program and overall vision that you have. So how do you clarify the vision and then ensure that vision is carried throughout all the different channels that you're responsible for?
Yeah, this starts with the foundation. So whether I'm talking about the Pantheon when I describe how I structure security, or whether I'm talking about the pyramid when I talk about the structure around responsible AI, at the foundation is our employees. We're a company of owners, and I emphasize that with everybody in the company, that it's not just my responsibility, it's everyone's responsibility. And I try to give examples of how their everyday actions dictate how well we do in delivering secure and ethical and reliable products, whether it's AI products or non-AI. And so by doing so, they now understand that they're responsible as much as I am. Part of that is building what I call critical thinking. I've been working on this for years at Lenovo since I've been there, and ensuring people have critical thought, critical thinking, which means when something comes in front of them, not only the leadership above them, but themselves are looking at it with an eye and with skepticism. And it's just the only way you can operate, because roughly 80% of issues will occur at the employee level. They're the best asset we have, but they're the most vulnerable if they're not paying attention and realizing their role and ensuring they're part of the overall solution. Examples: you don't get on the network if you don't have all the security elements up to date on your endpoint platform, your laptop. You don't get on the network if you haven't taken training. And I think people thought I was being a little bit dramatic on saying that's going to happen until I actually took people off the network. When they got their training, they were back on. It's really hard to do your job without having your access to the network. Now, where it starts at the top, I have strong support all the way from the CEO, who I report to all the peers on executive staff.
This is David again. And if you don't mind, I love how you said that it's an aspect of critical thinking with this sense of skepticism. It empowers your leaders. It's empowering them when you can say, Doug, hey, go out there, think outside the box, think from an angle that perhaps a consumer might look at it from, or something that we may not be able to cover because we can be biased and blind in our own way. Gather vital information, explore diverse viewpoints, and try to uncover something that could be hidden or something that could be overlooked. That's incredible that you do that and that you empower them to have that ability to say, let me think critically, let me think differently, because we might miss something here. And I think that's so important to be able to do that up front. I want to ask you, in terms of the products, the way you're building and what you're allowing to go through the first filter of exploration, how do you determine which paths to take and which products and services that you're going to pursue?
So we have an overall steering committee at the company that directs different aspects of what we're going to do as a company. So that steering committee, which I'm involved in, looks at all the different skills and strengths and our role in technology delivery, and determines what's the best area for us to participate. Where do we have credibility and permission to deliver that solution? When it gets to the area I spend most of my time in is when we decide we're going to do something, you register that project, and then it goes through a rigorous program to understand if all the criteria that we put in place are being met. We've had nearly 600 projects go through. We're moving very fast as a company. Obviously, our leadership is well known. Roughly a third of those don't make it through the first pass. It wasn't to stop it. Our job is to ensure that they address any concerns before it goes out the door. And these things like IP issues, government and regulatory issues, trade compliance issues, where an individual developer may not be up to speed or understand those intricacies, that's our job to protect them. So we don't expect them to be attorney compliance agents. That's why we have this in place, to ensure that that's done before the product goes out the door, not after it's delivered.
All right. I really think this is Danny. This is amazing how you want to make sure that if you don't have your training, you can't come on. I love that. I think that's fantastic. You're setting a bar that this is the minimum you have to have. And one of the things I love when I was in the Army is that we used to always do drills. And anytime we did a drill, we would always go back and review everything that we did. And we always, any situation, anything that could happen, we were always ready to go. But there was a minimal standard that you had to meet in order to make sure that what we're going to do is going to be performed the right way. And I think that even though this is an organization, it's global, it's not the military, but the principles that you put say, look, you got to have this minimum before you even move forward. And you talk about one of your pillars as well of AI governance is your diversity and inclusion program. How do you ensure that these values are genuinely embedded in the AI solutions Lenovo develops, rather than just being buzzwords? Because after a while, we can hear the same thing over and over, and then we get tired about it. I remember doing the same drill in the Army 100 times, and like, this is never going to happen. But you never know; it could be that 101st time. And so we always have to have that uniqueness about everything that we do, so that nothing can fail. So with this diversity and inclusion portion as one of the pillars in AI governance, how do you ensure that these values are really embedded in the AI solutions that Lenovo develops?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the good news is we've been worrying about that or working on that for years. We have a product diversity office. I think it was mentioned earlier that part of critical thinking is bringing in people with different perspectives, different backgrounds, different, raised differently, all sorts of different reasons why people would have a different view on something. So the product diversity office, we worked with 20 plus individuals, maybe 30, who helped build out what we should do in looking at products, because there's diverse views. And so we've had the product diversity office in place for many years. Their role is to look at each product with that set of eyes. And they have teeth in product delivery, just like security. So until they agree and pass that product through that office, it's not allowed to go out the door. And so you need to give them, one, the voice, and two, the teeth in and controlling what products go out the door before we vet for bias. Now, are you going to miss something? Absolutely. It's a continuous loop of learning. You mentioned that. Once you've done something, you review it and make sure that whatever learnings you had from that, you incorporate into your next cycle. And so we have a very rigorous process in place through the Product Diversity Office that does this for whether it's AR or not. It doesn't matter. It's a product, a service we offer, and needs to be vetted by that office.
This is David, Doug, and I appreciate you saying that no matter what our ideas or thoughts are about solution sets, we have to follow the protocol of making sure that this is vetted, that all opinions are considered. And as you stated, which I love, and I hope it's okay if I steal this from you, is not just the voice, you're giving them the teeth. It's not just saying, hey, I said what I wanted to say. I said my piece. At least I said it. No. If you say it, you better fight for it. If you say it, you better go at it. So I love that you said it's not just the voice, it's the teeth. And by the way, I'm going to hold on to that. I don't know if that's a term from the military or something you brought in, but that to me makes me feel like I can fight for this. And when I'm fighting for something, then overall, I know I'm going to get more out of my team. I'm going to get them to be more excited about what they're doing. It's not because they're going to have every opinion that they have, everything that they share being brought to the forefront, and that's going to be done. It's the fact that they can be heard and considered. I want to jump into something here, Doug, a little bit about your approach to Lenovo's commitment to ethical AI. And when you think about difficult decisions, when you think about challenging decisions, despite the growth of technology in the landscape today, can you share an example of your commitment to this? And perhaps something that maybe caused you to say, I'm going to push the pause button for a moment, or something that said, hey, we need to go back to the table, have more conversations internally before we go ahead and put this forth before the market, because we know what COVID did. COVID changed everything. We know that health pandemic allowed a rising shift. Now we know there's generative AI. There's so much that's happening today that we can forget that if you're just throwing something out in the wind, it may not be the best for the organizations and the communities that we're serving. So do you have an example? Maybe can you touch on your commitment to ethical AI?
Yes. It's interesting you say it looks like a tough decision until you compare it with the results that it could have created if you didn't make that tough decision. And I use this example in front of a leadership team where Formula One, Belgium Grand Prix, George Russell wins the race. He's celebrating, and then an hour later, he's got his hands in his face, crunched over because the car weighed 1.5 kilograms over the limit of a 700 plus kilogram car. So very fraction amount over. Doesn't matter. The rules are the rules. And so when I talk about governance, I try to explain to people, governance is driving success. It's not slowing down progress. And so our job is to ensure that the product is better than when you started, not slowing it down. And so we've made difficult decisions. We've had products go through that had potentially given away IP, given away customer data by inadvertently, breaking a regulation or issue by a certain country that individual didn't even know existed, or even transfer data across geographic boundaries that could cause severe issues, legal issues for that or the leader in that organization. So we've gotten more people agreeing and thanking us for making these tough decisions so that they could fix their product than finding out later when it goes to the market. And so I try to ensure that I've shaped the engagement with the product and services teams as we're a partner driving success, not a roadblock for your accomplishments. And so we're making difficult decisions every day. I said 30% of the projects that come through, we find some opportunity to improve that product and get it out to our customers.
That's awesome. This is David again. And before I ask my question that I had in my mind, you brought something up, and thank you so much for just touching on the partnership. And for our listening community out there, they may not know Lenovo has a partnership with Formula One, and we talk about the technology that you provide in your partnership with them. Talk about the growth of that partnership, if you can, and even just recently here in Austin, Texas, where we are, just a recent event here. But how has that grown, and what's changed as a result of that partnership? If you don't mind me asking that. Now, this is a little off script, and I do apologize for just jumping in, but I love how you use that illustration. That was fantastic.
Yeah, we look at our partnership as a really growing together partnership with Formula One. I've been in the technology center actually at Austin last year. And it is incredible technology. Their need to get video streams synchronized into multiple markets in a secure way. Our technology is right at the heart of it. So we've been a technology partner to ensure that they deliver their product. You got to remember, Lenovo is just one element of the product that they deliver. And so we participate in ensuring their end product takes the most advantage of the capabilities and technologies we have. So we've moved from being a logo to being a deep partnership for driving technology. And we always revolve around performance. Formula One is about performance, and Lenovo is about performance. So whether that performance is in the typical speeds and feeds, or whether that performance is in quality, or whether it's in security, we have to perform in all aspects of our product to ensure that their product that they deliver has that element built in as well. And so our relationship is evolving every year with Formula One, centered around the technology elements in their technology hub that we work with them at.
This is David again. That's fantastic. I love you said it's all about performance, and that's why that's such a natural partnership. And to me, there's nothing more exciting than that. There's an element of that speed, the adrenaline that's rushing in there, and to know that when you are at the very edge of technology, things change. And for those that are into Formula One and racing, you'll be able to see just the little tweaks of technology and how it changes everything. A fraction of a second can mean going from second to first place. So I love that you said that. I love that you brought that in there. That's fantastic. Danny, I'll go ahead and let you jump in at this point. David, that's fantastic question because the audience doesn't know, Dave and I have been fighting to get our voices heard since we were born, being twins and having a military father who is always traveling overseas. Sometimes we'll be home with our mother and be four boys in the house, right? There's two other brothers. So we always fought to get our voices heard. And I know that when we have amazing guests, Dave and I always fight to make sure that we're the ones asking that next awesome question for our guests to answer. So when I think about this evolving landscape and things change so fast, as Dave talked about because of the pandemic, and we actually look at technology evolution, what has actually transpired over the last 5 years has been more technology innovation and transformation than the last 25, 30 years combined. And when we think about all this change that's happening so fast and your role leading this global platform, how do you and your team stay ahead when it comes to the knowledge of what's out there and what's changing? And then how do you take that rapid change and bring it into the strategy of what you're going to build over the next 2 to 3 years? So how do you guys stay ahead of what is coming down the pipeline and what could be the next threat landscape when it comes to security or the next innovation when it comes to chipset? How do you guys stay ahead with all this information happening all at once?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, it goes back to why I tend to like structure. Because if you just take a look at the problem as it exists today, it can get overwhelming, very chaotic. And this is why you break it down into elements associated with key capabilities, or we call them SMEs. People have that experience in that area and hold them accountable for it. You know, they don't have a voice, they have a teeth, right? So if you take a look at even cybersecurity, we look at the threats. Now we look at AI as not necessarily bringing a total set of new threats, but it's accelerating the existing threats. And so we certainly look at what we need to do in cybersecurity to protect our data, our environment from those threats. But we also look at it as an opportunity. How can we take AI and build capabilities in our environment to protect us even further? So we look at it from both sides. We look at it as a threat as well as an opportunity, but we have a team of people that looks at that specific area of it and builds out solutions that help protect our organization. The same thing happens that's just pick something like government regulations. We have somebody that focuses on all the new regulations coming from all different governments across the globe. We work in 180 markets, and they're all building out different regulations. And so we have somebody fully accountable. Just came out yesterday, a portal that looks and analyzes every single regulation that then we can ingest in our process to ensure we're meeting all those. So we break down the problem set across all different aspects of it and ensure we have one funnel, which is I talked about the many hundreds of projects that come through that one funnel, so that all these different experts can look at that project from their specific area of expertise.
This is Danny again. I think that what people don't understand is when you do one source of technology or one product or one solution, you only have to do it in one nation. That's pretty simple. Lenovo has a breadth of products that does so many great things technology that's used in Formula One, the things that you guys are doing within the chipsets actually have better compute, better battery life. There's so many things you're doing, but you just said something that was so unique that just blew my mind. You have to worry about all the rules and regulations and the changes of laws for all the countries you guys operate in. That just whoa. And there's no way you could do that without having a simplistic structure that you guys have put in place. I think that's phenomenal. And I want the audience to understand this. This is not just rolling out a product. You have to think about what every nation and every country you're rolling your product into, what their laws are, and how you must abide by them while you're rolling out the product. So I think that's fantastic. Now, Lenovo recently joined the JCDC, right? This is the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative. And this is where you unite public and private sectors to really tackle the cybersecurity threats that are out there today. What motivated Lenovo to join the JCDC, and how do you see this partnership really enhancing Lenovo's cybersecurity posture and strategy in the future?
These regulations and rules, et cetera, across the globe, as you mentioned, 180 markets, they're going to evolve. We can't wait for them to be in place. We have to build capabilities in advance of that. But while they're being built out and evolving, we feel responsible for the industry to take a lead role in that, helping shape these rules and regulations. We take what's called a risk-based approach to look at what the risk is and then find a path, an effective and efficient path to solve that risk. And so that's why we work in the government and NGOs to help shape these, to ensure that we, again, do not block advancement in technology. We advance it in a responsible way and reduce the risks associated with doing so. So I think we have a strong voice in helping make that happen. And we're welcome in these communities to help them shape these, because let's face it, a lot of these organizations don't have a deep technical background. And so bringing in that element of it helps them shape that. And again, I say an effective and efficient way that doesn't inhibit technology investment, but protects the consumer from what could happen.
This is David, Doug, and I appreciate you sharing that. I want to ask you about the recent conference. We talk about the conference that took place there in Bellevue, Washington, Lenovo Tech World 2024. What an exciting time to bring leaders together, thought leaders, innovators, people that are really moving and shaking the landscape. What were some of your takeaways from that conference? What were some of the highlights for you personally, and perhaps maybe some insight that were not only gained or given to the audience, but things that you thought, I want to continue to push this forward as I lead in my position at Lenovo?
Yeah, there were several takeaways. I think the one that was most inspirational was we do talk about AI for all. And when you look at some of the stuff that was displayed in the showcase, where you're seeing AI technology service underrepresented communities. We had an example of Alzheimer's and how AI technology can be help people suffering from that horrific situation, help them through their stages of that advanced disease. We're seeing where we're helping out people that cannot communicate without technology. We're bringing technology in to help them communicate. So I see it when we do things like that, how AI is so powerful in helping underrepresented communities across the globe for various reasons. So that was very inspirational. I thought the interesting part was, and it's hard to say this without sounding like I'm patting myself on the back, because that's not the case. But when I spoke about what we're doing at Lenovo, the number of people, whether I'm speaking to partners, customers, or the analysts, how much of a lead role they see us taking in responsible AI. When we talk about the structure we put in place, the process we have in place to ensure that all elements of AI, from security to ethics to responsibility, are being met. Their comment back was, we're so far ahead of the industry and we could play a key role. This goes back to why we get involved outside of Lenovo, could play a key role in helping other companies build out their capabilities as well. I was very proud to be part of Lenovo when people gave me that kind of feedback, because we do have that culture of responsibility from the top of the company all the way through.
This is David again, and I'll say this, Doug. It's not about patting yourself on the back as much as knowing that you have an incredible team that you've led, that you pour your belief in, and to know that their hard work and your work collectively is being shown through the feedback that you're getting. And so, yes, I appreciate your mindset. And for those that know military men and military service leaders, oftentimes it's not about taking that. You deflect it. You look at it as us as a unit, us as a team. And for those over there that are Trekkie fans, you might say we're like the Borg, right? So when we win, we all win. And so I think that's fantastic. And I'm so glad we had to hear your efforts coming through in that way. I want to ask you something a little different about your background. We talked about your naval background. We talked about your work at Lenovo, what you continue to do, and the highlights of that work coming through with conferences like Tech World. You're Beaver. You're a graduate of Oregon State University. Danny and I, we're from the Pacific Northwest. We're from the Seattle area. We're huge Pac-12 fans. I don't want to get into all the reasons why the conference was breaking apart, but look, the Beavers, they stood in there, and the conference is still alive. It's still thriving. We're going to be okay. I want to ask you about your work there. What motivates you, Doug, to stay involved, to stay active with your university, because you champion not only the School of Engineering, the electrical engineers more specifically, and computer science, but why do you continue to stay involved and say, this is what I keep pushing? Because we believe that here in this part of our country, the Northwest, we have an incredible hub of designing and building future leaders in this space.
Yeah, I'll start with, first of all, I was raised in a small logging town outside of Eugene called Oak Ridge, which is heart of the Pacific Northwest. I've been a fan of the Oregon State for years. I think the reason why I love Oregon State so much, certainly we could talk at length about the Pac-12 and how it dissolved, but Oregon State is academic. It's a driven academic university with ethics that I'm just so proud of. I don't have to question the ethics of how that university is operated. I'll just leave it at that. I don't have to question that. And I think they focus on academics, and we have a alum that's actively involved in that. I was a year behind him, Jensen Wang. He started a company you may have heard of, NVIDIA. And so he is the same. He's focused on the academic advancements, and Oregon State has just grown as a leadership university in that respect. I went on to Stanford, and I always point to the fact that Stanford was a fantastic experience. So I went from beavers to a sequoia tree, but the leadership and the way I learned how to operate in my career at Oregon State benefited me greatly going on to Stanford. And I also root for the Navy. So at least I got somebody in the top 25 this year so far. But anyway, I think Oregon State's just ethics and their approach to how they operate as a university, couldn't be more proud.
This is Danny. I will tell you that Dave and I went back and forth hundreds of times when it came to what was going on in the Pac-12. But it's so awesome to hear your passion and the reason why you love the university so much, and the fact that they're doing something that many people can't say. It's that integrity. It's that ability to say, it's focused on academics first. Now, Oregon State's still a great football program. Let's not take that anything away. I think they've come a long way from being the little brother, and I'm really excited about what they've done and how they're actually going to take the next couple of steps. Doug, David, I want to say it's been great to have your insightful conversation today. One, because I'm a technology geek. I have an engineering degree. I have a master's in computer science. You have your electrical engineering degree. You also have your master's in engineering leadership, and then also your background in dealing with tech and nuclear engineering when it comes to the being in the Navy. But putting it all together, finding that right balance for innovation and security, and steering Lenovo towards this exciting and secure and ethical, responsible future, I think that's phenomenal. I think that's fantastic that you're able to leverage your background, your enthusiasm to be able to manage a global team in order to make sure that everybody in the future can benefit off of the technology that's taking place. And to our listeners out there, look, if you find it exciting to have guests like Doug on, and you find that guests who have an amazing background, who are able to blend the technology, blend the leadership, blend military background, and putting it all together to give you the best product possible in the future, stay tuned. We're going to have a little bit more exciting episodes with more leaders like Doug coming on our podcast. So we're excited about it. And we're also grateful for the relationship with Lenovo. Doug, thank you very much once again for your time today. Thank you for sharing a little bit about Bellevue, Washington, Lenovo Tech World, and about sharing your military background, and then putting it all together for leading a global practice that's going to give the consumers the best possible product they can actually have with ethical AI embedded together. So when we think about all this together, we want to say thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.